Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? Hope so. Yep, my name is Viola. I'm a CTO at Nuclecode. And recently we have developed an application called Grant Pact. Grant Pact is an application that says, is there a sync?
Yeah, we can hear you, but we'll just adjust the volume.
Okay. I'll just use the normal mic. Yes, Grant Pact is an application. It's a tool that integrates into your pipelines, and it helps you check and verify whether your agents are trusting the correct boundaries, whether they are doing the correct guardrails, what IDs, and how do you identify what agents have access to what tools in your MCP. The thing is that maybe like it's not recently that has happened, but many people now are creating a lot of MCP applications, and now these applications talk to each other, and they are creating the problems because from the era when we didn't have AI as widespread as now, we didn't used to trust those applications to execute everything on our behalf. Now this is a problem. So today's talk is going to be dedicated to stealing the session and skipping the login screen. I really don't care about the login screen at this point. If you've seen my previous talks, you've probably seen that I have spoken about logins, and typically I don't care about it. Like when I hack, I don't go to the login because login is the worst page to hack from. It's the simplest page. You can't get anything out of it, and it's just not as efficient. So the reason we are building that application is actually because we have consulted many clients on AWS services. We are setting up proper IAM and access management for the cloud environments, including AWS, GCP, and Azure. And we have noticed a lot of different flaws when we integrate AI models and MCP servers as part of that. So connect with me on LinkedIn. We can talk about different things if you're interested about. Here are my website. I've got a lot of resources. I volunteer as well, and I just constantly post some resources. I sometimes publish YouTube videos as well. And this is where you can get the AWS audits. There's a free 30-minute consultation if you're interested. We can talk about it, and see where it goes. I'm going to show the slide in the end as well. So don't worry, you're not going to miss it out. Here's my YouTube. Sometimes I post. Hopefully it can be more frequent. So let's begin our story. So we have Mark. Mark Ellison is a nice chap. He's working as a support for the portfolio guys. Oh, sorry. He's a support guy, and he essentially just works in a portfolio management company that manages capital and wealth for different people. Majority of my career I spent in fintech and e-commerce, so it's something that I really like to talk about. So here we have a Slack message. Literally, Mark is saying that can someone from the platform can take a quick look at that file. It's an HIR file. If you're familiar with the network tab in your browser, you can find that file with your sessions, and it's a pretty practically normal file. I don't know if you're familiar with that sort of logging on the side of the browser, but this is where you can just see the versioning, the general access controls. There are some really useful stuff around like what can access what, and just a file. So he also mentions that there is a client, the full name of the client, the portfolio support case. Obviously, we're not assuming that Mark is writing this from the office. He's sitting at Starbucks. It's the beginning of his workday, and he's just messaging to work what he has been received in a support. So the support basically communicated to him to send that request, attach his HAR file, and just support case number and portfolio, just as usual. So we're not assuming this is 2005 where we can intercept some logs, like we can intercept some requests on the network and just like get something out of that, because we have MTLS, we have TLS in Slack. I mean, it's just enormous security at this point. It's easier to do some social engineering rather than go on the network, because we all can talk. So essentially this is what happens. So that field that we had on the HAR file, we basically, what it was for. Like for support teams, I would say support teams like that file because they can immediately analyze and see what's going wrong, what you had before. What HAR file does primarily is shows your browser state. And maybe here you might all think this is where it kind of comes together because the browser state means what am I seeing on the page based on who I am and what I can access. What does an API show to me when I'm authenticated? What is the essentially like what is my session? So this is where the session replay comes in, and this is, it's an operational problem where people can just share this file with someone and someone can just pick it up. So this is where we are. He shares a file. The file didn't look like a credential. Like it wasn't an API request. It wasn't a protected password. It wasn't like an access to the internal application, although it was in the background, but he didn't know that because there was lack of, let's say, company training, all of those company assessments that you have to go through before you start your job. And just he wasn't aware of the things that go inside. And to be fair, how many people can really, extract stuff and really reuse that afterwards? Not many. So this is what happens. Like he just goes on. He's on the application for wealth management. He just grabs that browser state and sends that off to Slack and just captures it completely. And it's fun because it feels normal. It doesn't start as a security incident for sure. Like this is a part of a social engineering stuff, and we don't even assume that this is an attack yet. We are basically collecting the evidence for the broken portfolio. From his point of view, he's doing everything right. But yeah, HAR exists for that reason, to actually confirm what you have. So let's talk about the session, because session can do a few valuable things for us. And it can firstly identify the actor who is going to be acting on behalf of what and with what access rights and privileges. This is where it starts. Like essentially, if you don't have the full access, whilst Mark has the full access to the wealth portfolio, we're not assuming that much can be done. However, now that we integrate AI tools, we have skills for those models, and we don't know what we are doing. Just drop it in, we trust it blindly. Now it becomes a big issue because what we've seen in the client cases is the majority of it is just people thinking what they think it is, but it turns out a different thing. So the object access would be, broken at that point, and then the action takes place, and the tool authority takes over, and your system is mad. And these are, by the way, separate decisions, as I'm saying. Like this is, whether it is a money action or it's not. It depends on the context pretty much, but typically it is, and it's scary in that sense because you'll see later on how much how much money can just go somewhere, and you won't even know where, and you won't even be able to get it back. So yeah, the session is essentially, we want to expect some context, and we want to ask really good questions. This is a curl that I'm going to execute later on a live demo. So here, essentially, I'm showing that we have some past login event. We don't care about the login at all at the point where we are getting the HAR file because it already has everything that we need. We don't even need to, we can become so lazy that we don't even need to go and input login and password and everything. We just skip that. Because we have a session cookie. And a session cookie allows us to, carry on with the state. We can assume someone's personality. If you have someone's very authoritative, like a CEO of the company, email address, and versus like a session cookie, session cookie would be much more valuable than an email address. So yeah, this is where authentication feels this part of the record. There are some of the things that happen behind the scenes, and we need to understand that authorization is what decides. And that's why I say if the backend is not set up for success, then your application is doomed, because this is where you essentially define all of the rules that you're going to be using then with a model, because the AI model that integrates in your application, the MCP protocol that you're now implementing in your application is going to be mad as well, because if you have already existing flaws, this is where I say you got to pen test your applications before you integrate AI, and do zero-day exploits and be really anxious about your applications before you do anything to do with AI. I used to talk about the AI security, like AI-ready frontends before, but it's part of it. Backend is what needs to be done before you actually integrate AI. So yeah, the context at this point would be our capability with the cookies. We can assume ambient authority. This is a concept that basically tells you that with the right context, the wrong actor can basically execute the right decisions that it wants to execute. So, and then here we have the modern amplifier, which is the agents with tools. This is like monkeys with guns, and we essentially give that ambient authority to agents, and they have access to your tools, and now we can have a mess. So MCP abuse is one of the cases that I think worth talking about. We want to understand essentially what the model is there for. We want to know what the tool can do, obviously, but these are all like simple questions. Obviously, you need to ask many questions before you actually implement the stuff in the system, but the tools are very difficult to monitor in live production. And if something starts to happen, if it's a chain, if it's an event-driven architecture where you can't just stop and you don't have a proper break condition, then you're going to have a big problem afterwards, especially if it's a financial systems. So this is the chain we're going to execute. Today, we're going to grab the money from the portfolio. We're going to essentially have the money on the banking app. And we're going to see in real life how the session replay works. And yeah, we'll then talk about what failed and what didn't. So I'm gonna switch the context of my screen at this point, and we're gonna execute command by command to see where the session replay happens and how it does that. So let's get the let me check. Okay, get me the terminal. Okay, so we have an Ubuntu here. I hope this is prominent on the screen and. Oh no, it's fine. I'll just I have accounted for that. So. Okay, so basically what we're doing is we are grabbing the session that was already shared with us in the HAR file. The HAR file I have already persisted on my server. It's down there, so I'm not gonna go deep into going file by file and because it's just not efficient. Let's now get. So yeah. I'm just going to check quickly if my environment variables are going to be running okay. So let's just source our case file. Yeah, I think let's echo. All we need is a raw cookie, and did I use a GBP sign? Okay. All we need is a cookie and a ID for that. So yeah. Okay, and let's also output the ID as well. Perfect, we've got everything. So we don't need that stuff. Yeah, let's start with the session context. So we need to actually borrow the session that maps to Mark. So Mark has access privileges, and he is, his login is not broken. He's accessing the application. But the reason the contact was made in the first place, I think I've forgot to mention. So the reason he contacted the support is because the application on the side of the client, so Elliot, it was not functioning properly. So I think I actually forgot that. And we're gonna essentially just see like the login page at this point left the chat, but we're gonna see where the sessions is, and let's see what we get. So first of all, let me see where so basically we are looking at the actors. So the actor here is going to be the so Mark. The session here, his session ID. So we can clearly see like the hash. We can see the decision allow. This is what this is what your model says, allow, because it confused using your old outdated backend. It now confused. Sorry, I'll take questions afterwards. Oh, okay. Let me try to do that. This is WSL. This is not pure Linux. Oh, you mean, okay, you want to maximize it like this? Yeah.
The font size, yeah. Yes.
Yeah? Great. Well, so much for this. Decision has been allowed. Now we're moving to basically to see, let's just compare for the normal support context. In the normal world, we will have the same support section, but we will expect the tenant context. So bear with me. And the next thing that we want to curl today, this is the different context. This is the context for Elliot. So you can see the decision is still allow, obviously, because he needs to have allowed decision. The context crossed here, like this is ambient authority in real life, because we are basically allowing Elliot's user to be also used by Mark. And now, it's confused, essentially. And, this is not what we want. The decision should be different based on the user context. And this one is just proves us that this is, it's already a contamination system. Here we are looking at the cross-tenant object access. So this is where the mismatch happens. So we can see even like the details from the portfolio. We can see the portfolio ID. We can like match that with the previous one that we were looking at. So everything, like all the information. This is not the whole information on the portfolio, obviously, but this is a skimmed version of it, and we're just like getting those. We're getting those like pieces of information because I wrote a command to take the specific pieces of information. This is a different type of step. Like this is a discovery, and we're not doing discovery today. We're doing a session replay. So here I'm interested about the actor tenant, right in the first block. So we can see the actor tenant. This is now Mark. Because we're accessing it from the session of Mark, and the object is tenant, so he's not like attached to that specific object. And then decision is still allow, so we can pretty much be sure that this is now broken. But if I was pen testing this, great. But at the same time, like we're not pen testing today. We're not exploiting it. We're not testing it. We're literally just hacking here. So so this is our withdrawal creation. I want to make a withdrawal. So before the settlement actually takes place on my account, I want to instruct the platform, whatever platform there is for this wealth management portfolio company. There needs to be an instruction to the API. So here we're literally just requesting £25,000 to direct to a specific account, because we're able to access this from Mark's like Mark's domain, Mark's session. we can make withdrawals, we can do it. So you can still see the client name is Elliot Gray, and now the approval status is queued for dual approval. Nevertheless, we have a great MCP tool that can approve it. So the settlement status is not released yet. We can even see like things that were created by Mark. So the email, right? So we can see Mark's email. Who's going to go to prison after that? But this is the interesting question here is not whether the approval actually exists. We want to ask is, whether we can like satisfy it afterwards. Great, like this is great, but we want to actually see this in work. So now this is something that your AI tool is going to do. So basically, it's going to request, and there is going to be a bunch of policies that would be attached, like security groups, like policies that it sticks to when it wants to actually make this withdrawal. So there's like tool calls that you're gonna see, and it's just gonna be on the background. Obviously, when you click buttons on your UI, this is what happens on the background. And that's why I wanted to lead with this demo, so you can all see what happens beside the scene. So essentially, yeah, all the tools are running. Like we are requesting the chops here or via the rail that is existent in this particular system, and still we have false everywhere. We haven't approved that yet. So, but obviously we want this settlement event to settle. So I'm going to switch to my phone. Before I do that, I'm actually going to show you the command. Maybe someone is interested about this, but we're going to actually trigger a bank request to try and settle the money on that account. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So give it a second. It takes time because it's a different device. Yeah, so this is my bank account, right? Have my Pineapple Bank. Yeah, and I'm gonna just run the command. At this point, I just got 25 grand on my account because the approval, the dual approval has worked because the MCP tool allows it. Mark has just acted on behalf of that. And now I basically have that money on my account from Elliot Gray's portfolio. And now I'm going to cash it out, and it's going to be at the point where it's a non-returnable type of transaction. So yeah, this is essentially what we want to demonstrate when we were talking about the session replay. We're replaying the session from the file, from the HAR file that we initially grabbed from Mark's browser. We literally asked Mark to grab that file, share with us that file, and now we can get the session. All we needed is a session cookie. And the system that was an old, outdated banking system, as all of them are. So I'm going to switch back to my presentation now because there's a lot of things to talk about. Great. Yeah, we've got our terminals back. This is essentially our point. So, but let's rewind at actually what failed. Like the HAR now created the session, right? So HAR file, it's got a session state that we can grab, and I believe I showed that on the requests before. Let me grab my presentation again. I think I've lost it. Yeah. Don't believe the amount of terminals on my screen right now, and the Docker as well.
Could you please make the font bigger?
The font? Oh, we don't need the terminal anymore. I'm just going to switch back to the presentation. I just can't find it. Just give me a second. I think this one. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, The context that I'm talking about, I'm keeping going on and on about this. The session is expecting some kind of context. The contamination happens where the one actor has the same permission as the other actor. It just happens on different levels. It depends on the backend, obviously, but when you don't look at those control levels from the perspective of the business and you're trying to implement it prematurely, especially if you're integrating AI, then expect this to be, some kind of fault, especially if you don't invest in testing and you require your developers to test. So obviously, the access of portfolio needs to only happen from the point of the actual portfolio actor, like a portfolio owner, not the support team. But unfortunately, here in this case, the backend allows a mark to actually access the portfolio. There needs to be more separation of concerns on the backend. There needs to be more, RBAC and like role-based access, and needs to be more actionable on what can someone access and what other people can't access. And it needs to always lead with a least privilege. But unfortunately, in this case, it's not. So, and AI, unfortunately, also can do this autonomously because, whatever model you already have, you're going to integrate, and pretty much all of them are using probably the same skills, the same training materials, and they're probably going to end up in the conclusion where you're just going to grant the access to someone to access this. But the valid session, it doesn't like prove the context at the extent to which someone can access the object. So the object, I mean the objects of the users, and perform any actions, including the money actions, because money actions are the most sensitive ones. And the delegation of that action in the system might be like a very lucrative goal. Like you can say, oh, imagine we don't have to have like 500 people to manage the ops of the money actions, and we can just integrate one AI model that would pay for and like save up to 50%. Great. I have seen cases like that, and unfortunately, it doesn't work as smoothly as you would think. I know everyone keeps saying that we can replace people with AI, but no, not yet. Not yet. Unless we don't have enough money to train the AI to the extent that would replace people. So here's a small diagram. This is like 4 boundaries that I like to identify on the subject of session replay. So we want to understand the session context. This is where we literally want to see whether borrowed identity can work and what can it do at that level. So the session context would be accepted always from the browser, well, typically. And then the object boundary is where you would have the like the cross-tenant portfolio that we've had as a command. And we would read that cross-tenant portfolio with our parameters, and we'll just have that object boundary. The hidden money endpoint is where the function boundary comes in, and we essentially execute there a bunch of commands that would allow us to access that. And then we launder the money using the agent. This is the tool boundary. This is where the agent crosses the boundary, and there is almost no turning back from here. But this is the same session we're talking about, by the way. This is not separate sessions. This is like the entire chain that happens when you are going there for the session context. The worst part actually is that sometimes I don't see the TTL, the time to live, on those sessions, and especially important where you work with money. Many people assume that if you are creating the financial services other than a banking app, you don't have to like strike people from the app every like 10 minutes or whatever, but you have to, because when working with money operations, you got to think about those levels of authority. So ambient authority, I just wanted to dedicate a couple of minutes to that because, I mean, it confuses the deputy, and this is essentially the context. The context. It's a really old concept, by the way. Like it's nothing new, but it is so applicable to this AI agents interactions with the applications that you have already created, like maybe 10 years ago. So this is where the request simply carries the power to actually access something that was granted to another user, and you're bringing the context along with you. So, for example, cookie key, a browser state, like maybe tenant ID or like a tool token or something like that. And you're saying, oh, I am who I am, and obviously the computer doesn't see you like a border patrol, and it can't decide. So the browser becomes the bearer, and then the API trusts the object ID. Then we have the routes that would trust you as your role now is closely mapped to the original API. And especially if you have a loose API, that is the case. And then the agent will become the deputy and will orchestrate the entire chain, will trigger the event after event, and the money will draw from there. Yeah, this is what I have always in my mind whenever I make a decision about what I need to set up a system like. So I think it's very important to draw here the importance of discussing what the system can do and how, and especially emphasizing the most important parts where you're discussing the actual contracts of the agents between what tools can be like a talk, and between what tools we just need to absolutely have no boundary, like they can't access and see each other. So basically what I have shown you, the chain of events that were triggered one by one. These are basically the evidence of like where we are reusing the same stuff all and all again. And I mean, yes, we can execute it from terminal. We can also do it from like live JavaScript console or whatever, accessing the server and stuff like that. So yeah, I think the app needs to know who is acting at this point, and authorization needs to actually prove who is authorized to do what. So we can replay the session. I mean, this is pretty much what I have done. Oh, this is actually interesting. So yeah, on the side of the sessions, when we have the wrong object, there's a thing called BOLA. I think this is this is here. So I just wanted to like. So BOLA is like a broken object level authorization. It's like it's a concept that is an issue where we expose API, but we expose the actual identifiers, the object identifiers for the actors, and then we failing to check who can do what, like what the actual permissions are. So this is basically that concept in working, and I think it's OWASP concept, like essentially you can read it, and that's why I wanted to tell about it, because this is cross-tenant portfolio setup, and we were talking about two different actors acting as one because they are sharing the backend. So yeah. So yeah, the UI, we obviously don't care about the UI. Basically, if we hide a button, it doesn't hide it from the command, and we can still access it. Obviously, if you have ever interacted with a testing tool, you could pretty much find any buttons that are hidden. And the UI, when you're saying, "I'll remove that button," no, if that button sends money or does something sensitive, obviously we're gonna need to get rid of it. But yeah, I think this is very important here. So yeah, the money laundering, as I said, money laundering through the tools is an actual problem, because we want to not trust the agent to make the second approval. We need a second person, the actual call maker in the system, rather than just creating a tool that would be approving someone. Like, imagine that, like, you can put a tool at the boundary of the first approval, that makes sense, but when you're doing a second approval as a tool, that would be nonsensical, because you want to be 100% sure that this works. So granting the tool accessibility and ability to do the call based on the context, I don't think this is satisfiable for the system. So the receivers is the bank. I just wanted to mention that we got the we got that balance because the pipeline worked, but it's not the case all the time. Like, this is one of the events I have actually seen. So this is a simple case, relatively. But I think the visible pipeline here is that we have the replayable steps, like the context, and then we are just replaying that. And we can do that many times, actually, until the session leaves. It's up to us to do that. MCP abuse, as I said, is a common thing that happens. So MCP standardizes like how AI apps would be connecting to the tools. However, many times we fail to set them up for success from the beginning. So what data sources they can access, what services they can access, and we assume that if the model can generate a relatively human text, we just let it. We cannot do that because the security question is who can trust what, and whether the prompt would be safe. But this is not the prompt injection that I have shown. Obviously, this is session replay, and the actual payment APIs are probably the most risky category here, because we want to protect the actual money actions. If someone changes an information piece in the system, we don't really care in that sense. But it helps to secure your application from any of those, because who knows what the next zero-day exploit will unravel in the system. So yeah, that's enough for the demo. I mean, it's pretty much self-explanatory. Grant Pact, this is the tool that we have been developing for the most part of this year. It is going to be launching on the 1st of August this year, and it will have all of the necessary tools to set the contracts correctly and create your permission layer. So this is essentially a layer where you integrate it in your system. It checks in your repositories whether your authentication works as supposed to. I specialize in authentication, and I am access management. And this is what prompted me to do that, because AI models, they typically are unknown, and there's many of them, and agents can be regenerating new agents, and we lose track of agents in the system initially. And then when it comes to the incidents, we cannot trace back clearly what happened. So this is what we do. We're tracing them back. We're showing the exact chain of events that executes a particular action, and we care about the agent, where we retire the agent, where we adjust the capabilities of an agent based on the actual logs that we provide. We have a big dashboard that is a massive for different cases and use cases like for different scenarios, and it covers the most important attacks for the specifically LLMs, and not just the browser attacks. So this is something to wait for. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can see the announcement as soon as it launches. Yeah. So this is again, this is where you can connect with me, and I'll take all the questions you have.